Hello, everyone. This is Galicer from SeaKay, and I'd like to welcome you all to Netreo All Systems Go. This is going to be our second year at doing this. Last year, we were a newbie, and this year is going to be our second one, and I'd like to share with you some of our experiences and tools in working with Netreo. First, a little bit about SeaKay. SeaKay is a public benefit nonprofit corporation focusing on technology solutions. We like to combine technology inclusion and economic development. We are targeted at underserved and unserved communities, and in helping corporations basically contribute to society. We generally create engagement models that bring industry involvement, public sector players, and education and outreach activities to basically come up with solutions that benefit the economy. Today, I'd like to share with you our experience in our first deployment, which we were shadowing, talking a little bit about our lessons learned and our approach going forward in that. The first case that we're looking at here is, as per the customer's requirements, doing a Netreo implementation that actually brings everybody on board in the organization to successfully implement Netreo. And their main goal and objective was to focus on user adoption. So we've come up with a model that we're going to be implementing to basically facilitate that outcome. We realized when we first started the Netreo implementation that a critical piece that was missing for this particular organization was doing a basic assessment and figuring out what they were trying to do and what their organizational goals were in terms of implementing Netreo, and that is to get their most benefit, the most bang for their buck, so to speak, in terms of getting everybody on board and getting the benefit out of Netreo's installation. In order to do that, it's really important to identify the users groups and the different parts of the organization that are going to be using Netreo, and then be able to take full advantage of Netreo's advisory services going forward after the initial implementation is done. We can't emphasize how important in this implementation it was, because we had a full-fledged realm and range of services that we were in the middle of implementing as Netreo was being installed, everywhere from Meraki Cloud to AI Ops, as you can see on the list. And in order to successfully pull that off, you really need to go through a path for this organization in particular, where you do an assessment, you create a roadmap in terms of where you want to go, you get the various stakeholders together, and basically get an agreement on what everybody's trying to do to take full advantage of the task system. If you look over here, and this is something actually that I borrowed from Netreo's CEO and basically implemented it for this particular customer. Netreo is a pretty transformative process, and it really takes a path and sort of a increasingly level of commitment throughout the organization to do a successful implementation. And this gives an example of what kind of path we've seen through this implementation, starting at a general awareness of the value proposition, a general understanding of the technology, a two-way dialogue between the customer and the engagement specialists, some commitments and timelines for both parties in terms of going forward, and overall in the end, an ownership of, let's say, the dashboards and the information that Netreo yields. Uh, we have, because of the nature of our organization, the change management specialist actually on our staff. And he is not a technologist. He's more of a people person, and he's worked with us hand in hand in successfully implementing technology solutions. And so these are the various silos that we're looking at in terms of business, people, implementing a process, and technology solutions that we found are really successful going forward in terms of successfully implementing a change management situation. And again, I'd like to really emphasize the fact that we really strongly believe that Netreo can be a transformative process and technology for all those that successfully adopt it. Here in our implementation, we really identified a partnership between Netreo and us and the customer, and identified various elements of the implementation that both parties need to provide and work together to do a successful implementation. And so as you move through this, it's really important to basically state out on a timely basis as per the project plan what knowledge and what requirements are needed, and then be able to have an exchange of information going forward between the customer and the Netreo team across the board to successfully implement a solution. We specifically looked at, in this particular situation, all of the various people in the organization that needed to participate and be on board. And we identified these various forums of people within the organization that needed to basically support the implementation, which we needed to have a more intensive dialogue with to be able to have a key element of success. Most specifically, we're talking about the engineers, and that was particularly important with this customer because of AI ops. Also, IT servicing team, because they implemented ServiceNow, this is a real critical piece because of, I think, one of the major benefits that would help in terms of their turnaround time. And also because they also have a very strong involvement on the help desk side leading in from ServiceNow. Our forecast is if all the stakeholders are involved, basically the end result is going to be benefits that everybody is going to own into then, which is the predictive troubleshooting, increased incident solution resolution, and efficient communication feedback. Over the long term, and this is something that really resonated with the customer, these are sort of organizational objectives that they were looking for that brought the various stakeholders in the organizations on board to successfully implement Netreo. Improved user skill sets. Everybody, I think, especially on the engineering team, was really interested in upgrading and upskilling their capabilities and what they needed to do. Situational awareness. The organization itself had a very wide-ranging set of use cases and problematic areas that they were trying to get a better handle on. And again, we hope that the dashboards will help them basically with this objective of, being more proactive problem solvers, using the analytics that are gleaned from Netreo to basically create and anticipate issues, create solutions and anticipate issues. And also, I think this is something that management was really pushing. There's a general I think, approach in technology to sweep issues underneath the rug because everybody's sort of laying low when things go wrong. And management was really pushing for people to confront issues, and if additional resources are needed, to basically ask for the resources and do them in anticipation of problems using Netreo analytics we were pushing for to be able to achieve measurable results. So this is a path that we looked at and we're implementing now, and we think that this may be of use to other organizations. And again, just to summarize before we get into our second case here, we really do feel that some kind of organizational change management and engagement of stakeholders and the proper preparation will really help with an effective Netreo installation. The second case has to do with a deeper dive in terms of remote workforce. So the customer that we were working with actually were hiring about 1,000 people remote a year. And when the coronavirus first started, they basically moved about 1,800 workers to offsite work and implemented a wide-ranging Meraki solution to do that. And this was, again, I think, a case in point of what I said in the last slide, where basically all the Meraki equipment was rolled out, and then basically, the technology team went off and forward in terms of doing other things, and nobody really looked at it. And so we have an unmanaged situation in the corporate environment that was not really that manageable, and there were issues with that going forward. If we look at remote worker devices, and again, this is a case point, our team has actually implemented a lot of Meraki solutions. Meraki has a sort of a place, and I think this is true with a lot of remote workforce technology solutions, but it wasn't designed for the operating environment where we're operating in now. It was designed for engineers to basically run a lot of equipment out of the cloud. But there was no expectation for it to work within a corporate environment with the demands of the remote workforce in this day and age. And one of the problems that we ran into was when you bring it into a managed corporate network management system, you actually generate a lot of noise that is hard for the IT staff to deal with, because it's really hard to separate between the wheat and the chaff in terms of what's going on in implementations like that. If you look at it in the context of a Netreo installation, we're trying to monitor a bunch of corporate assets all the way across the enterprise. And at the same time, you want the granularity to have some kind of visibility into these individual workers. And that creates a very challenging situation. On the other side of it, we really do need ongoing insight into the device health, the performance historical utilization, and the information security incidents in an installation as wide-ranging as a Meraki deployment across the remote workforce. Like I said in the previous slide, and I hinted at, cloud-based solutions are really good to build out, configure, and deploy solutions to enable remote workforce. And they do give you real-time information, but they're not strategic. They can't be distinguished, and within Netreo, we're hoping to build a solution where we can basically categorize the devices according to where they're located and how critical they are, and how critical they are to basically glean information from. It's very difficult within the Meraki environment to basically control alerting noise levels. And when you superimpose that and overlay that in a Netreo environment, you run into some challenges. And also there's this whole deal of how you glean the information from the Meraki environment, and also how you have real-time monitoring. And Netreo does provide a platform to do a lot of that. Also, we do have difficulty in the traditional Meraki environment of being able to maintain historical data over a long period of time and actually do some kind of intuitive analysis on what's working and what's not working. And again, Meraki was built as a standalone solution, not necessarily to work in an enterprise environment. That said, what we're working on now within our lab is trying to develop an overall strategy of managing Netreo through a Meraki solution. Because Netreo is focused on detailed reporting, because it has dashboarding, and we can basically separate out and segment out where devices are located and do them into groups and come out with critical groups of information. We're really hoping that we're going to be able to develop a methodology that we're working on right now to control and prioritize noisy real-time fault fault monitoring alerts. And this is sort of the singular goal that we're working on to be able to get a handle on Meraki solutions. At this stage of the game in our lab, what we're doing is we're using the Meraki API and basically testing out different data sets that we can integrate into Netreo. The two basic things that we're looking at now are uptime and bandwidth. That's really basic, and I think that's very doable. And what we're hoping to do is use that information and some other elements of the API to implement rules to control alerting noise so that IT staff are not deluged by alerts from thousands of Meraki devices across the enterprise. Over the long term, what we're looking at doing is mining statistical data from the syslogs and setting up rules to basically help better manage specific codes and different kinds of devices and operations to be able to better control the use of Meraki. That's pretty much where we started out. Like I said before, we're just getting started with Netreo. We're very appreciative of the relationship, and I would welcome any questions that any of you have regarding either the organizational change issues we ran into in our implementation or the work that we're doing right now in our lab with remote worker and Meraki monitoring. Thank you very much.
Bye.